Hi, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda, and this is The Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast.
This podcast is all about taking action and creating that badass business abundance and life that you want.
Where we share stories, laughs, wins, and epic fails to show you the whole picture of the entrepreneurial journey.
It's not just unicorns and rainbows, people.
Jump on and follow us through this raw and witty roller coaster,
where we get down and dirty and go behind the scenes of life and entrepreneurship.
Get on it,
get over it,
and get after it.
Hey, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda. Welcome to The Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast. We have a question for you. Are you working smarter or harder? How are you working these days? We know this is a topic that many of us have heard about, but let's talk about not reinventing the wheel. Let's work smarter, not harder today. Let's get after it.
Definitely. I love that you threw in the point about not reinventing the wheel, because there are so many different ways in our life and in business that we can work smarter, not harder. And I think some of these will apply, but I know that really, because this was a topic of discussion, it always fascinates me how we have different clients, we have same clients together, right? And that it seems very seasonal that our clients are going through the
same stuff at the same time.
Now, this is a pretty good time of year. And also with, some of the events that we have going on or coming up, it is kind of a topic that's coming up anyway. But we really want to talk about your business structure and what you're doing in your business, not necessarily your referral network and different aspects, but kind of overall. I actually had a great conversation with one of our clients, our Together clients, and we were looking at her year. She was so overwhelmed with all of the things and she needed to increase profitability, but really kind of figuring out where that could be without adding more time to her, without having to pay more expenses. And it's one of my most favorite things to do with a client is to help them see like, hey, you already have X going on over here. It actually won't cost you more to put more people here. So how can we increase this? Like, this is all profit from this point forward. Or over here, this is pretty much all profit after this particular point. And to get them to see like, oh my gosh, I don't have to like create something new. I don't have to look at something because it was already something that they had. And actually the one, I won't give away her name, but the one was a group program that was kind of a flex group program, and she could actually introduce in the container in program within that program as well. So she kind of using the same day and time, the same group program, but having two different kind of ways that people could be into it, pushing it in that direction. It was fascinating. I know I'm not making sense to probably everybody else, but I know you understand.
Well, I know what you're talking about. I was having a conversation with one of my clients this week about a lead magnet. We were talking about lead magnets. She wanted to increase her following. And I was like, okay, what's the lead magnet that you had that had the best results? She's like, oh, this one from 3 years ago, but I can't use that because everybody's already seen it. I'm like, 3 years ago, these are your ideal people. And it got you the most results and used it 3 years ago. Why not reintroduce it to a whole new set of people who are now following you on Instagram, who can become your new set of people? And she's like, oh, I didn't even think that I could reuse. And I know that seems very simplified. I'm not trying to but this is a simple version of what we're talking about here, that sometimes it is just as easy as repurposing things that worked before. It's rinse and repeat. So if there are things that work in your business that have worked in the past, just because it worked before and you're worried about it oversaturating that particular product or service, you can reuse it in a different way. You can remarket it in a different way. You can market it to a different demographic. There are lots of ways that you can redo these things without having to create an entirely new product or an entirely new service, or in this case, like an entirely new ebook. You don't have to redo everything, particularly if there's been this large period of time. I mean, time goes so fast. It is already February. Like, when did that happen?
It's insane.
I blinked and it's February. So life is life and people are doing their own things. They're not noticing everything you do. So just because it seems fresh in your mind, it may not be fresh to your entire audience. And so there's lots of ways that you can repurpose and you can continue to work on what you already have without creating all this extra work and energy and like hiring somebody to do something. There are lots of ways that you can achieve great results by just reusing what you already have in a smart way.
Yes, actually 2 points. First of all, if your brand hasn't been upgraded in the past 3 years, then there's something going on. So just refreshing that document to look new again, shining it up to make it pretty. But also, you brought up a whole gold mine, which we should probably have a podcast all in itself around this. I know we've spoken around it a lot, but your client made a comment about they've already all seen it. You should not be mining in the same well all the time. Don't you want new people? And that is like one of the biggest kind of pushbacks is like, oh, everybody's seen that already. No, first of all, not everybody has. And those people who have seen it, maybe they haven't converted, but they're still your ideal client. I'm only talking about your ideal client here. And so they need those points of contact, right? They need to be reminded, oh, yeah, that's right. I did get that, but I didn't do anything with it. I had this conversation this week, and I think this is from the other hat that I wear. But actually, I've had this conversation a couple of times. When you keep planting the same seed in the same soil or same crop in the same soil over and over and over again, it depletes the soil of all of its nutrients. You have to infuse it with new, it's the same with your business. You have to infuse it with new people, new vibrancy, right? And same kind of concept. So I love that you brought that up. And I definitely feel like that's a rabbit hole we can go down in one of our podcasts.
Oh, for sure. But it's so relevant though, because you get so blind, like you get blinders on, like this is what I'm talking about. And I'm talking to these people and then nobody else is listening. And I mean, this example I gave is a 3-year time period, but it could be a 6-month time period. There are lead magnets that I see that I sign up for again because I forgot that I signed up for it in the first place because I never opened the email. So I'm just saying from perspective, not to like show you guys how royally I check emails, but to show you that even like your ideal client could still need that information because there's all sorts of things that happen that don't revolve around your business. I know your business is, you're in tune with it and it's your baby and no one will know your business the way you do. But that doesn't mean your ideal client is bored with it or is looking away or they're not interested anymore. They might just have other things going on and they didn't see it. It's really quite possible not to see things, even if you sent like 7 emails. Because things go so fast. I mean, and we've made this analogy before. Think about a time you saw a video on a Facebook feed and then you go back to try to find it and you're never going to find it again. Even if you know the page that you saw it on, you're like, oh yeah, it was so-and-so's advertisement. You're never going to see that advertisement again. It's never going to be there because information is churning so fast. So why reinvent something constantly if 90% of your audience and potential new audience didn't see it in the first place? So there's lots of ways that you can repurpose without seeming boring and dull. Even your social media feed, it's okay to use the same video twice. It's really okay.
Or the same
use the same picture or the same theme of, I mean, in fact, we recommend that you focus on these same content pillars. We don't want to be having a new piece of content every day that dilutes what you're trying to talk about because yes, every business, there are more things than just one thing. It's not like you only sell gum. Okay. You might sell mint gum and then bubblegum flavored gum. And like, there's more than one product. Almost every business, there's more than one thing. Even a pizza parlor also sells pasta, also sells drinks. And the point is like, you don't want to talk about every single tiny little item on your menu. You want to talk about the things that's going to pull people in, get them your main content pillars, the main purpose of your business, the main core problems that you solve, and then introduce them to it later once they're sort of more hooked. We want to bring people into your main things. What is it you're solving? What's the problem you're solving? What is the product? How can we reinvent that rather than recreate it every single time? We don't have to make a new wheel every time. We can kind of polish off the one we have, add some new tread, and then move on instead of having to like chisel out a new wheel caveman style and make the wheel for the first time ever. This is what we're talking about here, that businesses, there's always something you can do to repurpose what you've done before, assuming it's quality.
An established business that isn't completely pivoting. It's almost never that you have to completely start from scratch. You have something in your warehouse, something in your assets, be it content, be it processes, be it offers, be it lead magnets, whatever, that you can maybe even use as a template to create that. Get out of the mind that you have to create something new every single time. That's not the case. And what we find too is when entrepreneurs are in that mode and they feel like they have to recreate the wheel, even if there is cohesiveness between their products, offers, services, all the workings of their business, it feels very disjointed. But a lot of times it is disjointed because they're not looking at the full picture and seeing how everything weaves into one another, how it's not an independent. We're not talking about the sales cycle. That's something different. But this is like the way your business is running. So I just said, but also like looking ahead too. So not just assessing what you have and seeing, but like looking ahead. Even when you're in creation mode, like how can this scale? Amanda and I, till we're blue in the face when we're walking potential clients, when we're walking audiences, whoever we're speaking to the air is whenever somebody's implementing something new, from a process to an app to a platform to a whatever, we're asking them, do you have room to grow? Is there scalability in this particular process, offer, structure, content, whatever? So that way you can grow. Because if you look at it that way, then you're also looking at all the mechanisms that can grow with it, right? So, and you're also not pigeonholing yourself where you have to start, stop, start, create, stop, right? So really thinking ahead. And are you able to look at this with scalability in mind? Is it going to be able to hold capacity? And I'll give you a great example. Mind you, Amanda and I, sometimes not as easily, but we try to practice what we preach as much as possible. We find ourselves in these holes as well. So we're talking from experience, but we'll give you an example. When we launched the BA, our strategy was to go into a bigger platform, but I already had a platform that was paid for from previous. And so we just integrated that platform. And then when we got to a certain point, we bought into a platform that was more robust, that gave us more growing. And we invested into a certain platform that actually gave us the ability for the licensees that we'll bring on, et cetera, et cetera. So it gives us the ability to be even more robust. So you're always wanting to look at the growth aspect or the scalability aspect of that particular. Again, it could be a platform, it could be a program, it could be your process, it could be everything in your business, but looking ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, you talked a little bit about the sales process, and I don't want to make this about the sales process, but it's the same concept of looking ahead. Like, what's the next step in the client journey? What's the next thing they're going to buy? Because most entrepreneurs or most business owners know that it is much cheaper and much easier to get an existing client to buy more from you than it is to bring in a whole new person. So what's the next thing that they're going to buy? What's the next thing they're going to buy into? What's the next thing that you're going to be pitching? What's the next thing to help you scale and grow? And that can be from a sales process. It can be just from a structural process in your business and the programs that you make. Because, and it's funny that you talk about this. I mean, it's not funny, haha, but it's funny, interesting. Because again, our clients are having kind of the same conversations at the same time. One of my clients this week was talking about she wants to start a new platform. And that's great. I'm not against this platform, but she never really finished the last thing she was working on. And she thinks that that thing didn't work out because this new problem, this new idea is going to be the thing that makes that thing go off. I'm like, they're
Holy
not even
grail,
related.
right?
Even,
That's that mentality.
they're not even related. They're not even on the same content. It's like adjacent ideal clients. Like some of the clients will interweave, but they're not the same people that you're marketing to. And so this holy grail concept, this one platform, like in this case, it was YouTube. Like, so your YouTube channel is just going to take off and that's going to help feed these other things that you worked on, but never actually finished and never actually finished advertising or marketing. But you think that, oh, the YouTube channel is going to market for me. If I just, if I build that, then they will come to this. So yes. So the idea is that having to talk her off the ledge.
We're not laughing at you. We're
no, we're not laughing at
ourselves. No.
You know that I love you. You've been a client of mine for, I don't know, 2 years.
I don't know who this is. I'm just laughing because this is like, yes, this is a story.
This is a very common thing. This is not just this particular client. This happens all the time, that you think that something else is going to work, but you haven't really thought through the next step of growth in your first project, in your first plan. Listen, I will put on my ADHD glasses and have shiny ball syndrome all day long, and I will start a million businesses. I cannot tell you how many businesses I thought about starting in the last 3 weeks. I was like, I'm going to start a travel company. I'm going to start a moving business. I'm going to start a cleanup company. I went down a rabbit hole mentally. I didn't do it because I'm focusing on something else. Had I not had the direction and focus in another business venture, I absolutely would have gone and created like 6 more LLCs this week. I know I would have. But that's the idea here, is that we don't want to reinvent new businesses and just start a new LLC when you're trying to hyper-focus and grow what you have in front of you. Because whatever it is whatever business you're trying to grow, You're going to repurpose. You're going to reinvent things. You're going to rebrand a little bit. You're going to reuse what you have, grow upon a stronger foundation, and then see that growth and that scaling go exponentially rather than start, stop, start a new business, grow it a little bit, up, stop, new business idea or new project idea or new product idea. You know who you are, folks. Doesn't always have to be reinvent everything. And just because everybody talks about needing more content, just get more content out there, get more creative. And I'm not saying don't be creative and don't put good content out in the world, but you don't have to be constantly recreating to the point where you're reinventing and working overdrive on everything, hamster wheel, everything that you do. Where is that going to get you? That's just going to get you starting over again, over and over again in your hamster wheel, running manically, but you're still in that same cage, gnawing away at a salt block.
I would need to look into it a little bit more, but I don't know because things change so rapidly in the social media world. Is like 6 months ago, even the top content creators were telling you that they're repurposing their content every 3 to 6 months. They'll turn around and repurpose it again. They'll look at their analytics. And I know I do this. I know you do this too, is that look at their analytics, see what that quarter, maybe 2 quarters ago performed the best and repurpose that particular thing. Even sometimes like bringing back that exact same content, etc., but making it shiny again. So being smart about it. The dialogue that you had, actually, I want to bring home with it is when you're looking ahead, when you're doing everything that Amanda just said, and I said earlier, is you're able to actually make proactive decisions and not reactive decisions. So you're able to respond to things and not react to things. And this gives you the ability to stand centered. It's funny, I actually had a conversation. I'm a fractional COO for companies, and I had a conversation with one of my partners, and there's a little bit of a language barrier, although their English is great. Their primary language is in English. So sometimes the way I use words is different than the way Amanda uses words. There was a word that I use, and it was like that I'm a bit worried. I don't think that that's exactly the word, but essentially he was like, don't be worried. You got to be grounded and respond. It's just matter of fact. And that's things that I say all the time. I wasn't meaning that I'm worried about it. It's just that my spidey senses are giving me some heads up of I don't trust a certain thing that's happening. But it was so true. He's like, no, you're grounded in it. So don't respond. And essentially he was telling me, listen, be grounded, don't respond or don't react, respond. This is the response. This is the matter of fact response. And it was just a reminder. It's so serendipitous that we're doing this today, this recording when that happened. But when you are able to audit, understand what you have, like look at all of the assets, when you're able to like repurpose, refresh, but also think ahead, it absolutely gives you the ability to be in the driver's seat and be purposeful, proactive, and respond versus reactive in your business and in your decision making, which allows you to be more grounded, have a more stable kind of mindset and movement, which means you're working smarter.
You know, I love that you said respond versus react. I'm actually writing it down because we should do a whole podcast on that because
I love that. I say it all the time. I love
we
that.
say it all the time. We say it all the time. And it's so relevant. And it brought up a lot of things that clients had this week that I respond, not react. But again, from the perspective of working smarter, not harder, even that will help make you work harder because if you're constantly reacting and you're constantly, everything's a reactive response to sales, a reactive response to PR, it's exhausting and you're working harder, not smarter. And you're trying to reinvent your brand every single time something comes up because, oh no, what this came up. Ultimately, what we're trying to impart on you is that we know we speak a lot about strategy. We know we talk a lot about being proactive in your business. That is part of our content pillars of what we try to impart onto other entrepreneurs and small business owners. That strategy comes from looking ahead and having the forethought to be like, oh, if I do A in my business, then it should lead to B and then to C and then eventually to Z if I do it in this order, if I do this kind of growth. The last thing you want is to be continually starting back at A, like A.1, A.2, A.C, like where you just make up these extra numbers and letters so that you can kind of feel like if you're still on the same path, that you're recreating things that aren't really working in your business. And moreover, if you find that something was working before and suddenly you're not getting the movement that you want. So let's say in Lynn's example, you have a program that you're working on and it's a group program and it's working, but you want to start something else because you need the revenue, but you can't necessarily add on to your plate. Well, find new ways to rework what you already have and find a new audience. You can't be continually, as Lynn said, mining in the same well. You do need the refreshed client acquisition. You do need that. You do need fresh eyes on your stuff. And that's where you could repurpose a lot of things, because those fresh eyes haven't seen anything that you're doing. And yes, your opinions can change over the years. We all grow and develop and evolve. And if you had asked me my leadership advice 20 years ago, it would be very different than the leadership advice I would give now. Very different.
That could be a
If you still
podcast.
believe it. Throwback podcast. If you still believe in that thing, if that's still part of your company, then you need to be talking about it again. We go back and listen to our podcast on talking about your business, but you need to be talking about those things. You need to be reinventing those things, because if it's still a core value and if it's still a core belief and it's still a core pillar that you have in your business, it's worth talking about again. And it's worth bringing up again in a different way. And it's worth reaching out to a whole different audience who haven't seen it, even if they have seen it, but really never absorbed it and implemented it.
Yes. So challenge for you is, first of all, where are you recreating the wheel? And this could be even in your mind, because a lot of times it actually stops at the mind, because we're all in our like recreating, we have to do this. A lot of people will freeze or get overwhelmed, right? So where are you constantly recreating the wheel, and where can you work smarter, not harder, using some of the mechanisms or the points that we gave you today? Because listening to the podcast is just one thing, but doing something with it is where you're going to see the movement. It's where you're going to see different results. So stop the podcast, write down where are you recreating the wheel, even if it's just in your mind, and where are you working harder, not smarter. And then look at what you got. Look at your assets. What can you refresh and repurpose? Where do you want it to go? Do you have strategic growth? Do you have the ability to grow? Where can you be proactive and responsive versus reactive? And how can you work more strategically?
Absolutely. And remember, it doesn't have to be a big scale item.
No.
A lot of the burnout that I've been seeing recently, and I'll use burnout loosely because it's not really burnout, it's just misprioritization, overwhelm. Yeah. A lot of that comes from the small things you do every day that suddenly, like, I'll give a very easy example. You have fitness class, and every single day you feel like you have to research an entirely new playlist, an entirely new ab set. You can't ever teach the same exercise twice. Yes, you can. I mean, that's why people have squats and push-ups. Like, they can go in any workout. It doesn't have to be a completely new TikTok version of a push-up every single time. You don't have to reinvent every single time. Like, yes, you can repurpose and reorder things and make it shinier and add some new fluff. But if you're exhausting yourself with all these little tiny minutia things because you're trying to recreate, you're trying to reinvent everything every time, that is exhausting. So think about it. What are even the little things in your business that you are constantly redoing unnecessarily?
Absolutely. Share this podcast with somebody in your network who needs to stop recreating the wheel, who needs to start working smarter, not harder, who's just at that, like, I have to change something. Go ahead and share this. Share in your social media. I mean, we would love to be like a shout out on your social media.
And of course, if you are listening to this on any platform, go ahead and head over to our YouTube and subscribe to that as well. We want you to follow us because we want to impart our brilliant knowledge. And if you have questions, please ask them. If you have topics that you want us to discuss, please reach out, because we have a ridiculous bank of knowledge to pull from, and we want to help you in your business.
Absolutely. Till next time.
Get after it.
All right, everyone. It's not enough to just listen.
Now you've got to put it into action.
We are so excited to see what you do next.
If you enjoyed our show, please leave us a review on iTunes.
And to find out more about what we're doing, visit us at thepursuitofbadasserie.com.